I'm Milton from TeamFFLEX, and today we're going to be looking at IFBB Pro Wellness from the Girl Power event here that just took place this past weekend. We're going to look at our top 5 placings in the Pro Wellness class, talk about those placings, why they landed the way they did, and ultimately what that means for you as a wellness competitor out here. No matter your level, could be you're going for your first show, you could be going for your 50th, you could already be a pro. I'm giving you the tools, the tips, the strategies, the things you need to know about the 2025 criteria to do your best on stage. All right, so if you like that idea, you like following along, throw this on while you do your cardio or something like that and hang out with me. Subscribe, we got a lot more coming. Let's get down to it. So this is, again, like I said, Girl Power Top 5 Pro Wellness, and we have some familiar faces on the screen here today. So in our first place, we have Sandra. In second, we have Michelle. And in third, we have Rayleigh, okay? So what we got going on around here is Sandra, again, winning another Wellness Pro event. So that's a pretty big, substantial impact for everybody watching to understand that that's a pretty good marker for the criteria. She kind of went back-to-back events here, won them both, and that's a pretty good stamp, meaning like, hey, she's very much in criteria right now for this division. So as we know, wellness division is all about the lower body dominance, all right? And we're going to see that exemplified on all 3 of our athletes in this top 3 here, in glutes, quads, and hamstrings in this front pose, okay? Upper body is still relevant. As we know, you still got to have some, shoulder development, roundness, and fullness up top, but your lower body needs to look disproportionately sized or it's not going to favor you. Wellness for a long time, it was going, where it seemed to be a mass monster type look. A lot of competitors just getting on a ton of PEDs and, going real wild, but upper body started to grow too much and you kind of just looked, too symmetrical, too overall for the wellness division. A lot of muscle, a lot of overall muscle size and condition, not what judges were looking for. And we're seeing this criteria shift really a lot right now back to the root, and I really do like it. So let's talk a little bit about Sandra's physique a bit more. And if you watch the previous review, it's going to be pretty similar because these are basically back to back right here. But basically what we can see is she has good overall fullness and shoulder shape. I will say again, it almost starts to give you a little bit of that shoulder forward look when we first see her shoulders. Like, oh, maybe a little bit too much going on up top, but she has such a dominant lower body that, again, it doesn't matter. And you have to know as a wellness competitor out there if that's you or not, right? Because some women they may carry a little bit more shoulder size, a little bit more maybe genetic structure that showcases that. And you could actually, though, if we put Sandra's shoulders on other competitors, it'd be too much for them, right? But for her, since she has such a dominant lower body, she can pull that look off, right? So you really do need to know that as an individual out there in wellness, where your shoulders stack and how they actually stack on your physique. So she does tend to have a little bit more aggressive of an upper body look, I think, but overall pulls together well for her, pulls the win off here, taper in at the waist, all very good. I'm not, getting a distracted from the upper body look. It's just that moment where could be a little bit big on some athletes, but for her, pulls off because, again, we go to lower body, a lot of glute density, a lot of quad density, hamstring, everything. Overall, she's definitely more lower body dominant, so that's what tends to tie together. Now, if we look over at Michelle in second place here, she's got a very comparable physique looking to Sandra, but again, I think judges really have been hammering this home every pro show I've done, and even the amateurs, the NPC at this point, we're seeing that the bigger, more muscular physiques are moving down in placings. So Sandra's very comparable muscle-wise, right? But she does compact it on her frame better. It's not oversized. It's not too much going on. Looking at Michelle, we do get a lot of that shoulder size and development here, maybe a little bit of a thicker look through the waist, a lot more muscle in the lower body, honestly, than even Sandra here. But taking second versus first. Granted, we have not seen the back pose, which if you watch the channel, I always say full story when we get to the back, so hang out. Let's make sure that we get to that factor before we make conclusions. But, a little bit more muscular, placing second, not winning the pro event here. Very interesting to see these things. She's also a tad tighter. We can see she's a bit leaner, start to see a little bit more of the splits in the quads and things going on here. So great overall shape and structure, but maybe a little too much muscle and maybe a little bit leaner to win this class, which is very interesting. But again, where we've seen the wellness kind of look developing as of late is in that realm where, the mass monster look, not winning events. Granted, Michelle does not look like a mass monster. I'm just saying it seems to be a global movement here away from that look in wellness division back to the roots of the criteria. Looking over at Rayleigh, what we can see, good overall shoulder shape here, tapers into the waist very well, good glute structure, hamstrings, quads, all very symmetrical. She does appear a tad lean, right? This is a very deep line here. So maybe coming in leaner. We got to get to the back to really see, but very comparable size and structure overall. In this top three, it's a very close top three in this lineup. Now, when we get to the back, we'll get the full story like we always tend to. So, Sandra, right, very much so a different look from the back than our other top two. You can see it almost instantly, so we can see just a little bit of that shoulder shape here. Very on point with the criteria. Shouldn't see a lot from the back, but we do see a little tapers in. And then lower body-wise is the focus we want to look at in posterior chain back pose here. Looking especially at wellness, you want to see the quad sweep from the back, that glute from the upper glute here, roundness, fullness there, tie-ins, a slight separation between glute and hamstring tie-in, which often looks like more on a wellness competitor due to that muscle size. And then lower body-wise, again, you know, everything has to be symmetrical, tie together, and just hamstrings, quads, everything, glutes match and shape. So very interesting, though, when we look at this. She's got a very, you know, compact frame, a lot of muscle on there, a lot of shape. Not the biggest athlete out of this top three, though. Probably actually the least big athlete out of this top three when you talk about muscle size. We look over at Michelle, good shoulder shape overall for this division, tapers in pretty well. A ton of muscle going on in the lower body here. A lot of hamstring, a lot of quad, a lot of glute, upper glute, tie-in, everything. It's all there. It's just a lot more muscle and not winning this show. So very... Again, a big statement from judges, I think, having Sandra win another pro show wellness, that really this look has kind of gone back to the wellness look we knew where it kind of started. And, you know, I was coaching at that time when wellness got announced, and the look really was like, hey, we want a bikini that's a little bit more lower body dominant. And that was what was being talked about across the board. That's what I was coaching for in those early years, and that was what was winning. And then there came a time where, you know, in the pro leagues especially, we started to see just the kind of mass monster mutant almost look where it was just tons and tons of muscle. Granted, nobody looks like that now. That has been so, like, not favored on stages. It's almost not even happening, but... Even still, we start to see this criteria going back. 2025 wellness criteria is going back to the roots where it's all about that shape, all about that size and that muscle and that lower body. It's not about pushing the envelope of that muscle, though, and getting too big, and it's also not about being too lean. So very interesting to see, again, this competition playing out. By the way, if you're watching the channel and you're like, what's going on here? I hear what this guy's saying. How does this actually apply to me and my physique? You want to do this right now. Grab your phone. You're watching, grab it, type in TeamFFLEX.com/7-day trial. This, you get to come train with me free for 7 days in my online coaching platform. I do not only do competition reviews, I do this for a career. I'm a coach, and you can come over there and I'll assess your physique, give you feedback, build you actual custom training sessions relevant to your goals. So if you don't know what areas of your physique are strong points, weak points, things you need to improve and whatnot, that's exactly where you get that information. It's the only place you're going to be able to get that. If you watch the channel and you enjoy this and you think, oh, this is helpful, I'm learning, go over there and you're going to learn literally 50 times more. I promise you that. And again, it's free, no obligation to sign up. You don't put credit card info. You're not getting charged at the end of 7 days or anything. None of that. It's just to give back to you, the bodybuilding community, my viewers. I appreciate you, and I get to appreciate you a lot more when I help you even further as you go through that trial. Okay, so check that out. Now, Rayleigh over here, what we can see overall, her shoulder shape is very good for this division. You know, honestly, it's not overtaking anything from the back. Just see a little bit of that. Lower body wise, though, we do start to get, you know, some factors going on here that, again, could just be the shot, but, you know, there may be a little bit of an asymmetry between glute. You can see that here in the tie-in versus that one. You can see just a little bit, maybe more size over here. This does happen to some competitors. Again, this could be a pose or an angle, so I'm not going to make a hard statement on that, but I will say for the sake of competitors watching, especially in the amateurs, you do see those types of imbalances. And it's mainly because your body, your dominant side tends to always be working a little bit more in any which way. So you can actually get an asymmetry like that, and you will want to correct that through training, unilateral training, different activation drills, whatever you got to be doing. So if that is you, something to be aware of for this, who knows if that's the case, but either way, it might be a factor if it is. Overall though, a lot of size going on in the quads here. They kind of, I think, pull away from what's going on with some of the other muscle groups. It makes the hamstrings look a little bit underdone. The glute structure looks good. Upper glute overall, tie-in, everything is there. But still, again, more muscle than our first place winner, Sandra, here. So very, very interesting to see this playing out, where more muscle and wellness is actually not winning events right now in 2025. All right, let's take a look at our fourth and our fifth in this group now, where I think, the criteria stands out even more typically as we move into these lower placings. So we have Giovana over here in fourth, and then we have Q in fifth, okay? We're going to leave Sandra right in the middle there, as we know she is the class winner. So Giovana here, very good shape overall. Shoulders seem to be pretty on par. Great taper into the waist. Glute structure, quads, everything is all here. Wellness competitor, no doubt. But pretty symmetrical, right? In this front pose, at least. Very symmetrical look where shoulders, you could say match the glutes, match the quads a little bit more. Not as much of that lower body dominant look you want to get in wellness. And again, wellness competitors sometimes do run into this. We see this a lot in the amateurs, even into the pros though, where you can look too symmetrical up and down, and that can be a major factor. You really want your lower body dominance to stand out. And if you don't have that, it's going to make you look too symmetrical, which again becomes more of a bikini look. So then you end up looking like a more muscular bikini competitor, and that's not going to be the most favorable thing. So for her, at least in the front, maybe a little bit more symmetrical. Also coming in a tad leaner, I would say. Start seeing some more splits in the quads here, more definition through the ribs and the abdominals, things like this. So maybe just a little bit leaner. We'll see from the back when we get there. Looking at Q, good overall shape and structure here. Pretty much tapers into the waist very well. Good lower body look. It does appear maybe to not be at the same level as far as condition goes, lower body wise, maybe a little bit of a discrepancy. We're gonna have to see from the back. Also though, I think there's a lot of size going on in this lower body, to the point where that could be, again, too much for maybe the direction of this division right now, which seems to be, not emphasizing the huge look that we have seen in previous years, right? So that may be a factor here. From the front though, overall looks pretty good. All right, into the back now, where we always get the full story. So Giovana, yes, very symmetrical look. It does kind of tighten up a bit from the back. We start to see, the quad dominance is very, very big. That's actually not an advantage though, typically, right? If you have one muscle group in your lower body that is looking too blatantly dominant, throws you off. In your lower body symmetry and wellness, you want to be symmetrical. From the glutes to the quads to the hamstrings, everything should match in harmony. Very similar to Sandra here, right? Like, this is a very good look. Over here, Giovana, a bit more quad dominant, a lot of quad size here. Not getting as much depth from the glutes either. The upper glute is not as round and full. Overall tie-in is there, but that's from condition, not necessarily from muscle. So we should see that a bit more from that muscle depth. Seeing it actually mostly from condition right there. So for her, definitely some symmetry in the lower body, and probably even honestly softening, filling out that look a little bit. For Q, a lot of the same going on here. Good overall shoulder shape, structure, tapers in good. Lower body wise, again, we could be seeing, maybe it's just a shot, maybe it's just the angle, whatever. It does look like it could be a little bit of an asymmetry going on here between the glutes. Who knows? Again, I never want to just say, oh yeah, that's what's happening for sure, because anybody who's been looking at competition photos long enough knows that that's not always the full story. But for her, not getting as much size out of the posterior chain compared to the quads. So she's very quad heavy in that front, not as much coming from the back. So glutes seem to be a bit under. Upper glute needs some more. Overall glute 3D effect from that tie-in, the glute structure, more of that. And, again, she comes in pretty lean from the back as well. We start to see a little bit more of that separation, those things feathering apart. That can all be factors that, again, wellness has apparently moved to the roots again and continues to do so, which I think is a great thing. I think it's very good for all wellness competitors. I mean, it really does. I know a lot of wellness competitors getting very discouraged by the criteria for a while. I know that from my experience as a coach. Like, what the heck is going on here? I would never even want to look like these girls, so to speak, back in that mass monster era, if you will. And now we're getting a very clear path back to the criteria as it should sit. And it's same things happen in bikini, same things happening with Fit Model. Like, Fit Model came in and has pulled criteria back for bikini and wellness. So very good things overall. Happy with that. I want to know what you think. Do you like, Sandra for the win here? Do you think somebody else should have pulled that off? Do you like that mass monster look, or do you prefer, that more kind of wellness? Yes, it's lower body dominant, but it's not as hard, not as massive of a look. I want to know. Drop it in the comments, and thank you for watching. Coach Ryan is out.